There's no way, right? There's no way I'm dedicating an entire episode to Pretty Boy Detective Club, right? It's called Pretty Boy Detective Club for a start. But here we are, I'm dedicating an entire episode to cover goddamn Pretty Boy Detective Club. But there's no way I'm about to recommend this, right? There's no way that I walked away from this 12 episode series with the thought that, you know what, that was good, right? Right? No, I have to admit it. I watched Pretty Boy Detective Club and walked away thinking, you know what, that was good. I don't know why, so maybe this review will help me figure that out. So I need to preface the explanation of the narrative with a quick fact, that this series' story is super dumb. It attaches realism to a rocket and sends it flying into the stratosphere to explode into colored rain. So, if that's a deal breaker for you, then you're not going to enjoy this series. So the story's about a middle schooler named Mayumi Dojima, who has magic eyes that allow her to basically have x-ray vision, allowing her to see things that no one else can. But as a child, she saw a super pretty star that inspired her to become an astronaut. But she hasn't been able to find that star again. And for that reason, her parents are like, you can't be an astronaut, so grow up. It doesn't make sense, but just go with it. But she encounters the mysterious leader of the Pretty Boy Detective Club, Manabu Shoton, who values things with a beautiful aesthetic. And since he feels her mystery matches up with his aesthetic, he offers to take up the case, leading Mayumi to meet the Pretty Boy Detective Club, who has 3 rules: be a boy, be pretty, and be a detective. The team consists of 5 members, including the previously mentioned leader. Those individuals are the Student Council President Nagahiro, the school's lead punk Michiru, mysterious rich heir Sosaku, and the school's best athlete, Hyota. After the 3-episode arc that includes the so-called star being a secret satellite that got nuked in space, a team of amoral transporters, and a kid on a bike catching up to a car, Mayumi makes peace with her magic eyes, thanks to Manabu, and willingly chooses to give up on her dream of being an astronaut and decides to use her eyes to help the Pretty Boy Detective Club as a member, which Manabu allows, as he says that she has a boy's heart, and she's willing to dress like a guy, thus leading to their various misadventures. Quick sidebar though. If you think there's a slight trans element thanks to that line, you're not alone, as she also receives voice training to sound like a guy later in the series. Also, the school just splits her in the guys section for choir, which, hey, pretty progressive, but it's a bit rude to assume that. But I don't think there's an intentional trans element, just an accidental one. But best case scenario, it's just the same situation as Haru from Oran. Mayumi's gender is a moot point, sidebar over. Anyway, if the story is a mess, why do I enjoy the series? Well, I think it's because the visual department went totally ham on this series. Definitely keep your eye on anyone who worked in that department. The visuals on Mayumi's eye and tie are great. The backgrounds, while a bit hit or miss at times, are great. Look at the stars of the opening scene of the first episode. I can even respect the watercolor backgrounds they use for the final arc, even if I think they don't look all that great with the characters in motion. But they also gave the animators freedom to experiment with different styles. Just look at the horror-inspired design used in the last episode. It came out of nowhere, and if this doesn't end up on someone's demo reel, that's a goddamn shame. The difference in styles is used to great effect when each of the Pretty Boys give their theory on what happened, which gives each one a bit of flair. Also, I don't really mention audio and animation, as I don't really have much to say. I can tell you when things are off and when it's bad, but generally if I don't mention it, just assume it's fine. So if I do mention it, I really mean it. But let's take a second and talk about the audio. I think the series has some good backing tracks, and its OP is an absolute bop, and has some fun animation of its voice dancing, which I think has some satisfying animation. Again, that's my opinion, so do feel free to disagree if you're not all too impressed, but it's definitely a strength, and those looking for some great visuals will love this series. Lastly, I like the message this story tells. Yes, the story's a bit stupid, but they somehow made lemonade out of some limes. The message is that even if being a pretty boy detective is childish, and that they will need to grow up, there should be no rush to grow up. You should enjoy the time you get to indulge in things like this, as they will make up the memories and friendships you will carry for the rest of your life. Telling people, oh man, I used to dress like a guy and join a Pretty Boy Detective Club. I think it's a pretty good message. But there are slight annoyances that I do have. The Pretty Boys are kind of lacking in characters. Ryota and Susaku don't really have much personality out of their archetypes, the sporty kid and the silent kid who does art. Michiru's punk archetype is never established on screen, just a bit of backing to determine his personality. As for Nagahiro, the series really toes the line with the joke that he's a lolicon, since his parents put him in an arranged marriage with a first grader, which is a yikes. Additionally, we need to remember that these are middle and elementary students, and you gotta be careful with that fact. Mayumi being in a bunny suit is pushing it, Manabu pointing out his Hatsune Miku disguise multiple times is definitely drawing my eye, as I feel you could have done more than just one disguise. He can pull it out as long as you're not being creepy about it, but if you're just doing it just to have a femboy, that's a bit suspect. But for whatever reason, I walked away saying, hey, that was good, and I would probably watch a second season of this. So I guess if you're looking for a new Scooby Gang of characters to follow, or a series with some quality visuals, then hey, here you go. Maybe my opinion will lessen as time goes on, as I'm still running that positive feeling after watching it, but Pretty Boy Detective Club gets my recommendation as a series that doesn't take itself too seriously and is ready to experiment with stuff and get a bit absurd. Or maybe that last year of anime reviews is finally affecting my mind, and this is the start of my slow descent into madness.